Hare. Gopijana Bhalabha Giribharadhari Jaya Gopijana Bhalabha Giribharadhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamunatira Bhanachari Jamunatira Bhanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jayam Vishnupad Parivrajagacharya Ashtotarasata Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Nitai Gaura Premanandi Oh glory to the assembled devotees Oh glory to the assembled devotees Oh glory to the assembled devotees Oh glory to Shishi Guru and Shiguranga Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonon, Chapter 58, entitled Krishna marries five princes, text number 2 and number 3. Drishtva tam agatam partha mukundan akileshwaram utasturjugapadvira pranamukyam ivagatam. Drishtva tam agatam partha mukundan akileshwaram utasturjugapadvira pranamukyam ivagatam. Please chant. Dristva, seeing, tam, him, agatam, arrived, Parataha, the son of Pritha, Kunti, Mukundam, Krishna, Akila, of everything, Ishwaram, the Lord, Utashtuhu, they stood up, Jugapat, all at once, Viraha, heroes, Pranaha, the senses, Mukhyam, their chief, the, the vital air, Eva, as, Agatam, return. Translation and purport by the disciples of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. When the Pandavas saw that Lord Mukunda had arrived, those heroic sons of Pritha all stood up at once, like the senses responding to the return of the live air. Purport. The metaphor used here is quite poetic. When a person is unconscious, the senses do not function. But when the consciousness returns to the body, all the senses spring to life at once and begin functioning. Similarly, the Pandavas all stood up at once, enlivened to receive the Lord Sri Krishna. Text number 3. Parishwaya chutam vira anga sanga hatainasha sanuragasmitam brat paktram bhikshva tasya mudam jaju. Translation. The heroes embraced Lord Achyuta, and the touch of his body freed them of sin. Looking at his affectionate face, at his affectionate smiling face, they were overwhelmed with joy. Purport. Srila Jiva Goswami explained that since the Pandavas were never sinful, the term Inashaha here refers to the suffering caused by separation from Krishna. That unhappiness was now vanquished by the Lord's return. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Romapada Swami Iti Namine. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gaura Bani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatyadi Shatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namaha. So, the special relationship that exists between Krishna and the Pandavas is highlighted here. So, yesterday we were reading from Mahabharata just to get a picture of the circumstances in which Lord Krishna is um, traveling to meet the Pandavas after the 1 year exile that the Pandavas actually was self-imposed exile. It was more strategic because they could understand that the whole thing, the whole intrigues and envy of Duryodhana that started to very strongly manifest in a way that actually he was he moved towards a very murderous type of actions. There were two major events that became almost like a huge red flag for the Pandavas. One was Duryodhana trying to murder Bhima by giving him poison cakes. That was the one. And then when that failed, then this whole scheme of burning them to death in the house of Lak came, to be. When they poisoned Bhima, then now at that time the Pandavas could understand that we have to be very, very careful and we have to be very alert because now this has transcended for just, some of a, um, siblings relationship that were competitive and that type of thing into something that actually was criminal and evil. And so they have to be very, very alert. And because of that alertness, they were able also to manage this um, situation with the House of Lack. That was the attempt of actually kill them, not just Bhima, but kill them all, including Kunti Devi. The strategy that they took under the advice of Vidura was to remain hidden for 1 year. During that whole year, people thought they were dead. So in that way, they were able to let the whole atmosphere of, all these terrible intrigues to terminate their lives, that to settle and also to regain, a much better position. Because one of the things that was at their disadvantage that they could understand was that they were basically alone in that whole kingdom. They didn't have proper protection. they could understand that very clear, that the king, Dhritarashtra, was not going to step forward to give them the protection that that he was supposed to give them. For once that they were, the children of the brother of the Dhritarashtra. So in the scheme of things, they were considered also equally as children of the Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was their elder uncle. For that, in terms of family, but in terms also that they were the righteous heirs of the kingdom of Hastinapura, because Pandu was a king. So with all that, they needed to be fully protected. It was expected. But King Dhritarashtra, he was also taken by this desire to control and to rule, and therefore with that, he purposely and consciously didn't offer protection. And so they found themselves that they're in a situation that there's only the five of them, and they have no protection. The only, the positive things that were there were grandfather Bhishma, Dronacharya, Vidura, Kripacharya to some extent, but they could not do anything because the king was not favorable. So it was a very dangerous situation, and they could understand they have no protection. So when all these intrigue were as far as trying to kill them all, then part of the understanding is that they need to retreat, gather themselves, and start to find ways of creating a much stronger position. And the stronger position that they found came through the alliance with King Drupada. When they were able, by Arjuna's prowess, to win the Swayamvara ceremony of Draupadi, then King Drupada was very powerful. And now they had a very powerful alliance. So that was a very strategic step that they were able to do. Now, during that whole year, only two persons in the whole circle of families and extended families were understood and have the understanding and the knowledge that they were not dead. And that was Krishna and Balaram. So when they appear again in the capital city of King Drupada, then Krishna went there to meet them. And as they again came together with Krishna, then they exhibit all these symptoms of ecstasy, of love in union. So when we have throughout this canto, especially with the inhabitants of Vrindavan, describe these two principles of Sambandha and what's the other one? Union and separation. um, Viruddha, and Sambandha, union and separation. So, so when the devotees come in, when they're in separation, they're constantly meditating on the Lord. But when there's union, there's this great happiness also. So they're experiencing this, and it's wonderful that Srila Jiva Goswami highlight this point by saying, because the translation is that um, when the Lord embraced them, they were free from all sins. But the right understanding of that word, that Sanskrit word, is because they're sinless, they were free from something, from some unhappiness and some type of distress. But that distress that is described is the distress of separation from the Lord. So that distress became dissipated by the embrace of the Lord. Now, in the famous prayers of Queen Kunti, after the conclusion of this whole saga that led to the battlefield of Kurukshetra and that led to the establishment again of Maharaj Yudhisthira as the emperor of the world, fulfilling Krishna's purpose of establishing religiosity again in the world, Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya. Then at that time when Krishna has finished his business and he was to return back to Dwarka, Queen Kunti offered the famous prayers that are recorded in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, the prayers of Queen Kunti. And Queen Kunti, she declares that during all this time, all this situation, from the time that Duryodhana and poison Bhimasen, through the time that they had all the dangers that they have to confront during that year of exile, of having to face, these terrible rakshasas, Vakasura and Hidimba, and all these horrible rakshasas, and during the time of the house, the great fire, like that. All these things where they were protected, and they were fully protected by the mercy of Lord Krishna. That's how she sees it. That's how they see it. And she declares that in those prayers, that their understanding of Krishna as their protector, that was always there. And that's their position. That was their position of devotion. That's why the Pandavas are celebrated. That was the Pandavas have this very special connection with Krishna in his lila in this world. The whole Mahabharata, or at least the heart of the Mahabharata, is surrounding this relationship between Krishna and the Pandavas. And throughout, it is highlighted the full dependence and the full understanding as Krishna as their only protector. And over and over and over, the situations came because it was one terrible thing after one terrible thing, because the the desire of both Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana to eliminate the Pandavas was so strong and so relentless that it was one after another scheme to try to destroy them. And over and over and over through those schemes, Krishna was present to give protection. And Queen Kunti highlighted, my dear Krishna, your lordship has protected us from the poison cake, from a great fire, from cannibals, from the vicious assembly. The vicious assembly was when they're trying to drag Draupadi and disrupt her. From sufferings during our exile in the forest, during the time that they were exiled for several years, and from the battle where great generals fought, the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And now you have saved us from the weapon of Ashwatthama. So throughout, that's their understanding, not just the queen, but that's their understanding. And then the queen, Queen Kunti, delivered this most famous expression of that type of faith that is almost like one of the great quotes to follow and to become inspired by any aspiring Vaishnava or any established Vaishnava. When Queen Kunti say, Vipada Shandutha Shaswat Tatra Tatra Jagat Guru Bhavato Darshanan Jasyat Apunar Bhava Darshanam. I wish that all these calamities, those calamities will happen again and again so that we could see you again and again. For seeing you means that there will be no longer, that we will no longer see repeated birth and death. So that is the faith of a pure devotee. That regardless of the situation, they the darshan, that type of darshan, Baba Darshanam, that sorry, Bhavata Darshanam, Bhavata Darshanam, or Krishna Darshanam. That type of darshana is the constant desire of the devotee. That type of connection with Krishna is the constant desire of the devotee. And beautifully expressed by Lord Chaitanya, Aslisya Bapada Panar Aslisya Bapada Ratam Punar how's it go? Aslisya Bapada Ratam Punar Adarshanan Marmahatang Karotuba Yata Tata Babi Datatulam Pato Nat Prana Natastu Saiva Napara. The Lord say, there is no, the Lord Chaitanya said, there is no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handled me roughly by his embrace, or made me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do everything and anything, for he is always my worshiper Lord, unconditionally. So regardless of the situation, Krishna is not present, Krishna is present. Krishna, we're going through this difficulty. That type of faith never wavers because one understands that Krishna is there to protect oneself. And the fact is that when one finds oneself in a situation of helplessness, then it's much more easier to, as Queen Kunti expressed, to constantly be thinking and calling from Krishna. So she prefers those situations that the situation that she found herself after the battlefield of Kurukshetra as Krishna is living. Now that there is no danger, all the different things that were happening that were dangerous, they're finished. Krishna has established righteousness in the world. All that is finished. Now they can relax. They can chant Hare Krishna very, very happily with no type of anxiety because all the sources of anxiety has been eliminated. That situation, obviously, they're very happy. However, when the perspective is that Krishna is living, and now that there's no problem, Krishna they may not be able to constantly be calling for Krishna. Now, that situation is less desirable than the situation in which they were in constant danger and with all these situations that were happening over and over to try to harm them. She prefers that, which is quite remarkable. So that is the Pandavas, and that is why they're so celebrated as pure devotees, and that's all of them, including Draupadi, including Uttara, including the extended Pandava family, were such a level of devotees. And Queen Kunti concludes that, my Lord, your Lordship can easily be approached only by those who are materially exhausted. Easily. So it's about the easiest way. So when it's materially exhausted means that you have the material situation is so difficult, it's almost hopeless. So one who is in the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feelings. My obeisances are unto you, who are the property of the materially impoverished. You have nothing to do with the actions and reactions of the material modes of nature. You are self-satisfied, and therefore you are the most gentle and are master of the monist. So that is the position of the Pandavas, and now we're seeing that in full display. So I'm going to stop here. Any comments or questions? Sharjana, you okay? You have a thought?
Since you were highlighting Queen Kunti's prayer, which is actually calling for that situation of calamities or being in danger because of the prospect of Krishna coming to actually give protection. It's interesting in this purport of the verse number 3, the idea of separation from Krishna and the suffering that goes with that is the term that was used was, kind of a sinful reaction. So I mean, factually, that's not the case, that there's ever really separation. Isn't that correct?
Correct. You know, that's the whole thing that Kim Kunti is highlighting. That because in the materially exhausted type of situation that they were put, uh, Krishna was always, the darshan of Krishna was always there from within their heart, and actually Krishna will even manifest, immediately as they were, in some situations, like during the time that they were in the exile, and the disciple Duryodhan managed to direct uh, Durvasa Muni and all his disciples to the camp where the Pandavas were sort of camping during the exile, understanding that they won't have the means to attend to uh, Durvasa Muni and his 1,000 disciples, and on the top of that, Duryodhan was so cunning that he sent Durvasa at the time, he understanding by his spies, when they finish to eat, that's when they arrive. So they have no way of being able to to take care. So when they found themselves in that situation, because if you displease Durvasa Muni, that means death. So then they thought of Krishna, Draupadi, and immediately Krishna appeared. And then that's the famous thing that he took the little grain of rice from the pot, and just by him becoming satisfied by that grain of rice, then the whole universe became completely filled up. So Krishna will do that. The time that Draupadi was being disrobed, Krishna appeared to deliver all the sari. So that's the situation. He was always there. He was always in their heart. Although the things were not highlighted in the Mahabharata, Queen Kunti does highlight us. You know, she said that actually in all those situations, you were the one who saved us. So it gave us protection and throughout. So yeah, they were not that. That's what the devotees called Srila Jiva Goswami, the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, that since the panda was never sinful, the term enesha is the one that translated into all their sinful reactions. So, you know, it sort of relayed that all these calamities were happening as a result of the sinful reactions, but they were not sinful. So therefore, the calamities, they were situations that were arranged in one sense um, by Krishna's will, Krishna's pastimes. It's part of the Mahabharata, script that Krishna, give, and in reality was caused by just the separation from Krishna, external separation, not the internal one was very fully fulfilled. Okay. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.